Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. Such a pleasure to have you here with us in beautiful Cannes. Maybe you could begin with a brief introduction to your film, Universal Language. For people who don't know anything about it, what can they expect?
Sure. So it's a movie with three different stories in it. It's about these two kids who find a frozen banknote in the ice and they're trying to get it out. Simultaneously, a tour guide is taking a group of befuddled tourists on a walking tour of Winnipeg. And thirdly, there's an autobiographical plot following me returning to Winnipeg to reconnect with my family. And the film is entirely in Persian, with a few scenes in French. And it's this strange kind of hybrid piece, kind of merging the cinema of Quebec, Winnipeg, and Iran.
And tell us a bit about the genesis of the project. What gave the idea? Why did you want to make the film?
Yeah. Well, when I was growing up, my grandmother, she told me this story that I really liked about how during the Depression in Winnipeg, she and her brother found a $2 bill frozen in the ice on the sidewalk, and they tried to get it out. And the story that's told in the film is very similar to the story she told me. And it always reminded me of these Iranian films from the 1970s and 80s that were produced by the Qanun studio, which gave us films like Khani Dus Kojast and other really great ones. And these sort of children's fables facing adult dilemmas. And I always had this idea of I always loved the cinematic language of these films. Found them very tender, very poetic, very beautiful, and I had this idea to reconstruct my grandmother's story through the prism of this language. And parallel to that, I went to Iran as a young person. I wanted to study cinema there, and I failed in my attempt to do that. But I met a lot of really great people, and my life has had this sort of kind of conversation with Iranian cinema and a lot of Iranian friendships, and at a certain point we had this idea to just make a film actually in Farsi and really go for it and do it with a Persian-speaking cast and so that's it sort of emerged very organically out of my grandmother's story.
Obviously, an ambitious project. What were some of the challenges you faced along the way, or on the flip side, some of the highlights?
Yeah, well, we filmed with a lot of turkeys. There's 17 turkeys in the movie. You know, I wanted to do this one image where the turkeys sort of walk in a certain way. They kind of move in a certain way, and I thought, I wanted them to do this, but I thought, well, they're turkeys, so, you're going to get what you're going to get. But anyway, the turkeys showed up, and we did the first take, and it was perfect. Like, these turkeys were just fantastic. And then we did take number 2, perfect again. And then we were like, wow, these turkeys can just do it. So we waited for the light to get nicer. Turkeys did take number 3, perfect. Anyway, so we got very confident that these turkeys could just do whatever we wanted them to do. But then a few days later, we were filming with only one turkey in this kind of snow dump. We filmed this one part. In Montreal, there's a lot of snow, and there's this one part of the city where they collect all the snow and they put it all in one place, and it's about 1 kilometer high and 2 kilometers wide. And we did one take with this one turkey, and then he ran. He just darted, and we sort of watched all in disbelief as he climbed up this enormous pile of snow where no human could possibly reach him. And anyway, so that sort of ended the day of filming. And then the next morning he was arrested by the Montreal Police Department. Anyway, that was the biggest kind of hijinks we went through. Everything else was really fun.
Yeah. And in terms of the look and feel of the film, it's very unique. What did you take kind of influence from specific films? Is it very much Iranian cinema? Are there other kind of filmmakers or styles of film that really inform your style?
Yeah, there's a number of, I guess, influences at play. Certainly the great Iranian masters, Mr. Kiarostami, Mr. Panahi, Sohrab Shahid Saleh, Forugh, Mohsen Makhmalbaf. But I would also say there's a lot of Jacques Tati in the film. A lot of Jacques Tati and a lot of Quebec cinema as well. There's a lot of Quebec cinema that sort of follows these solitary characters on a kind of self-destructive mission home. That's kind of a sort of a trope of Quebecois cinema. And so we're kind of playing with that one too. But as far as the look is concerned, I really wanted it to. I really wanted to film in buildings that I associate with the city I grew up in, with Winnipeg, which is a very brutalist city, and so we filmed with a lot of brutalist structures. And the interesting thing for me when I first went to Tehran was how much the buildings in that city resemble the city that I grew up in. And so we kind of wanted to use that architecture to kind of create, again, this sort of unity across distances. And the idea was to sort of find the divinity and the poetry in these very bland and ordinary structures. Yeah.
And what do you hope the impact of the film will be, or the takeaways? What would you say the thematic considerations you hope people go away thinking about?
Well, it's a film that plays with great solitude and great community. It plays with great distance and great closeness. And I see it as about the biggest of the biggest and the smallest of the smallest. And all of that is trying to trace some kind of connection. Space and time and geography are all destabilized in this movie, but they're all seeking connection, and they do find this point of connection at the end. And I do really see it as a Venn diagram. It's multiple spheres finding some point of overlap. I'm really interested in centers as a filmmaker. There's a space for solitude and periphery and all of this, but what I'm really curious about is the center. I feel like after the pandemic, our ideas of togetherness have kind of changed, and our ideas of solitude have changed. And I feel like we're now in a world that is much more rigid and much more binary than it was before that period of confinement. And so this movie is trying to trace some space where, across great distance, we are overlapping in some kind of common story. So that's what I'm hoping people will be able to vibe with.
And what does it mean to you to have the film here at Cannes Film Festival?
It's really wonderful, particularly in this section, Quinzaine. I really love this section. This is exactly where we hoped it would go. This section is really punk rock. It's really, anti-establishment. It's really, really challenging to the mainstream. And I really love that. That's where I really kind of see my own work. And I think it's really important to try to make new images, and I think that we make so many images now, and a lot of these images are intended to really just confirm what we've already decided is true. And I think that to try to make new images that kind of expand the way we see the world and maybe look at the world in a way we haven't looked at it before, that's something that really inspires me as a filmmaker, and I feel like that's very much the mandate of the Quinzaine.
Are there any other films in this section or in the rest of the festival that you're dying to see, or any filmmakers that are on your favorites list?
Yeah, I have it. It's really hard to get tickets, but I have a ticket to a movie I'm really excited about called Good One. I really want to see that. And there's a film written by my friend Faisal called Into a Land Unknown. There's a really good film. There's a really interesting film written by my friend called Faisal called Into a Land Unknown. I really want to see that one. But I don't know. I don't know if I'll get any tickets. I have to see Guy Maddin's movie. He's my fellow Winnipegger and one of my cinematic parents, and I love Guy Maddin. And so his film Rumors is premiered last night at the same time as ours. So I have to go watch that on Monday.
Amazing. And how do you see Cannes as a festival, I guess, in the film festival calendar? And what do you think that's special about this as a platform for international cinema here in Europe?
I'm a relative newcomer to Cannes. I came here 7 years ago with a short film. This was my first feature I've shown here. I mean, obviously, it's an enormous platform. It's gigantic. It's enormous for everyone that shows here. And, of course, with that comes all manner of other things. It's very possible I will be a crumpled tuxedo heap by the end of this. I'm hydrating on champagne alone, and it's sort of getting to be a bit much. But it's really great. It's really interesting to sort of observe. Sort of all hubris is kind of on display. It's like wealth, celebrity, power, lust. You're sort of seeing these on display in really kind of radical ways, but really beautiful, really great, really challenging, really independent. art is also elbowing its way through through all of that as well. So that's really good. So yeah, it's really fascinating and strange to be here. It's a very bizarre joy, and I'm really particularly happy because my whole team is here. We're about 30 people, and these are people I really love, and it's really beautiful to kind of live this very strange joy together. I went on the. I'm not a fancy person by nature. I don't really like getting dressed up. I don't like being the center of attention. You know, I don't like things that glitter very much. But because we have two young actors, and you know, it's amazing to be a young actor. Child actor and to be here, it's kind of great. So anyway, we did the Montée des Marches. We went on the red carpet and, you know, put on the tuxedos and this kind of thing, and it was really strange. It really felt like a cross between a debutante ball and a public execution. But it was really great for these kids. For them, it was a rush. So that was great.
What do you hope you're going to be working on next? Have you already got another film percolating, or are you going to let the dust settle on this one and see how you go?
No, I'm already hard at work. I'm hard at work on it's quite a different film. It's a documentary, an archival piece, and it's about a conservative Canadian prime minister. It's kind of a biopic. All of my work is kind of informed by the biographical form, and so now I'm making this kind of found footage psychedelic biopic of this conservative politician.
And do you still see that there's like quite a gulf between sort of cinema that comes out of North America, you know, US and Canada, and what's like in Europe? Or do you feel like, you know, I guess cinema is becoming so international, there's a lot of osmosis happening, and you know, you get a lot of art house stuff out of US and Canada now, and other stuff that comes from Europe, which isn't necessarily art house. I don't know, it's all kind of mingling together. Or is there something that still makes it quite distinct?
Yeah, I don't really know. I feel like Canadian cinema is overwhelmingly dominated now by the Hallmark movement, which is movies about Christmas. I don't know if you're familiar with these, but Canada, I believe, produces an enormous amount of this content. Like it's an unending orgy of Christmas in Canada, and this was something it has a certain value. There's certain lessons to be drawn from the Hallmark movement. We were filming this film in the winter, and winter, as you might know, is almost extinct as a season. When I was growing up, there was always like lots of snow you could rely on. You know, it was always very cold and there was always lots of snow. But now winter is very fragile, and you can't really rely on there being that much snow or even that much cold. And so it was really challenged. We were trying to film and we wanted to look wintry. But what I've learned from the Hallmark movement and all of these Christmas movies is it only needs to be Christmas inside the frame. You know, outside the frame it can be a beautiful sunny day. It can be here at Côte d'Azur, and you know. But inside the frame, it's a cozy little nativity scene with sprinkly white snow, you know? So I don't know, I feel like Hallmark Christmas movies that I'm not sure anyone really watches them, but that's what Canada makes, really, at this point. It's overwhelmingly that. As far as our art house is concerned, Quebec is a little bit more advanced in the art house zone. There's a lot of really exciting filmmakers there. And of course, Kazik Radwanski in Toronto is, and Sofia Bodanovich also in Toronto, making really incredible art house work. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I mean, I guess that the world is much smaller, but also there's like zillions more images. You know, and you know, for every 1,000 Christmas movies made in Canada, there's maybe one personal film or half a personal film. So it's you know, it's always a struggle. I feel like it's always been hard for art. There's always been obstacles for art. The world is not intended for cinema, you know. So it's the intensity of your conviction that will ultimately make the film, right?
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that with me.
My pleasure.
Really
I hope
enjoyed
it's
spending
useful
your
for you.
film here in Cannes. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much.